Well, welcome to the Board of Education meeting for Weld County School District 6 on this, the 8th day of February 2021. This meeting will now come to order. Will you please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Crane, will you call the roll for us, please?
Mr. Hafley?
Present.
Mrs. Mash?
Present.
Mr. Matthews?
Present.
Mrs. Mueller?
Present.
Ms. Pappas?
Present.
Mrs. Solis?
Present.
Mr. Talley?
Present.
7 members present.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. Well, today is a significant day for our school district, and actually for school districts across the state of Colorado, because today is the day that our teachers in Colorado, the first day that our teachers can begin to get vaccinated, and so we're excited for this day, and we are incredibly hopeful. But we also want to help our staff gauge expectations on what that COVID vaccine looks like, and it would be great if they had just sent us 2,700 doses of this coronavirus vaccine, but that didn't happen. And we don't expect that to happen. And so we encourage all of our teachers and everyone working in a district to, you most likely will get vaccinated through one of your healthcare providers, either Banner or UC Health or someone like that. Continue to check your email, check your spam folder. Just make sure you're getting, make sure you don't miss something from UC Health. But we are excited, and partly because I know we're all pretty weary of this virus. I can see that in my kids. I can see that just in the teachers that I know. I mean, we are all tired of wearing masks. We are all tired of doing the distancing. We're as parents, we are tired of the quarantines. I'm tired of hybrid and online, and we are all anxious to get this virus behind us, and yet that's not where we are. We've had some great news in our community that Greely Evans is under 5% positivity rate, and that is great news for this community. That is great news for this district. That is what enables us to keep schools open, but we need to be vigilant. I mean, we need to hang in. We need to continue to work at this for the next 3-4 months, so that we can continue to have schools. So I'm just, for the parents that are out there and watching this, and I don't know how many there are, but please, if your child is sick, please keep them at home. If you've got a pending COVID test in your family, please keep your child at home. We desperately need everybody's help just so that we can continue to operate and make this second semester the best that it can be. Well, those are all the announcements that I have tonight. And so we are now to our public participation portion of the meeting, and I do not believe we have anybody, do we, Ms. Crane? No, there are nobody needing to speak to us on agenda items tonight. And so next item of business is our work session report. So Ms. Crane, will you update us on what we've been doing, or what we did right before this?
Of course. Board of Education President Michael Matthews began the work session with comments and updates from board members, and then proceeded to review the calendar of upcoming events and meeting dates, which concluded the work session.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. Dr. Pilch, we're to your portion of the meeting and your report, so I'll give it to you.
Thank you, President Matthews. I just have a few announcements and some celebrations. I wanted to share that the annual Success Foundation breakfast, which is their annual fundraiser, their large fundraiser, the plan is to postpone that until April. Many of you may remember that was the last large event we were probably at on March 10th before we went remote on March 13th of 2020. So they're looking forward to doing a breakfast that is a drive-through. Outdoors, involving lots of students and celebrations, but stay outdoors and you drive through and grab breakfast, and more to come on that. But we're looking at April as a possibility for that. And then I wanted to share that there is dirt moving out at that new Torrington Pre-Engineering Academy. If you've not been by there, it's pretty exciting to see. The construction trailer was coming on site today. So they're getting started with getting ready to build a new school on that new site. And then this past week, our cabinet and I, we met with all of our instructional leadership team. And this is the team that makes up really all of the instructional folks from this building here. So all of the coordinators and directors and assistant superintendents, executive directors. And so we meet about monthly with this team, but this last meeting, I asked the team to just give really an update on their big rocks, like the 2 or 3 really big things they've been working on this year. And I have to tell you, it was so refreshing and encouraging and really uplifting, because we've all spent so much time managing this crisis of COVID and this pandemic. And as you mentioned earlier, President Matthews, we are weary. We are weary with COVID and just doing COVID. And I just want to share with you a few of the things that the instructional leadership team shared with me. And I know it will just cause you all to want to learn more about the work. And so I'm working with Cabinet to identify some additional board updates that maybe aren't directly related to our Innovation 2020. But I think it's good information you'll want to hear about. There's so much good work going on. Lots of trauma-informed work and training here in the district around the social-emotional learning and the social-emotional curriculum. They continue to implement that work and meet with teams throughout the district. There's a math adoption going on, an AP, Advanced Placement Materials adoption going on, and they'll be bringing those proposals to the board later this spring. Lots of good work going on with our building equity teams. And so the equity work that's actually happening at the building level, and the work with leaders in our district and being teacher leaders, folks who are deeply committed to this work and are working to do this work at the classroom level and in our school buildings. And then developing and refining our district-wide common assessments. You know, when we talk about worries about do we or not do the state test, these common assessments are so important to tell us how our students are doing across the system in relation to what we're expecting students to know and be able to do. And that work is continuing. The partnerships with UNC, I have to tell you, I've never seen the level of partnerships we have with University of Northern Colorado that we have currently. And so it's not just the teacher training, which of course is a big piece, but it's UNC students in our buildings and in the community mentoring, new partnerships with the Cumbres program and being in our schools. Lots of work around getting their practicum students and their students who are in pre-service, whether that's in speech language therapy or whether that's a classroom teacher, to be able to come in and do some things virtually. So really exciting work there. And just so grateful for the relationship with the University of Northern Colorado. And then the inclusion work that has gone on in special education. And this has been a culmination of a couple of years, several years of work. You know, we did that special education audit, and then we came back and we said, all right, here's how we're going to address what we found in this audit. We implemented that co-teaching, and we are just seeing some significant data around the impacts of that work. And we are actually going to bring you a full report on that in March, because I know many of you care a great deal about that work. And then just a reminder that we've been doing that WIDA testing, that access testing for our English language learners and staff from the district level as well the building level, have been testing students throughout the district. So we will have statewide data in relation to how our English language learners have developed throughout the school year. And you know, that just to finally say about all of this great work that's going on, so much of it is because we have the additional resources of our mill levy override. This mill levy override we have has allowed us to do much of this, and I just continue to be so grateful to our community for supporting us in the way that they have, so we can do the right work for our students here in District 6. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Filch. Our next item is to approve an agenda tonight. So if somebody would be so kind to make a motion.
I move that the Board of Education of Greeley Evans School District 6 approves the agenda as presented. Second.
Thank you all. Is there any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, Ms. Crane, will you call the roll for us, please?
Mr. Haefele?
Aye.
Mrs. Mash?
Aye.
Mr. Matthews?
Aye.
Mrs. Mueller?
Aye.
Ms. Pappas?
Aye.
Mrs. Solis?
Aye.
Mr. Talley?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. We also need to approve our consent agenda tonight. So would somebody make a motion to this end?
I move that the Board of Education of Greeley Evans School District 6 approves items as presented on the consent agenda and authorizes the officers to sign any and all contracts.
Second.
Thank you both. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, Ms. Crane, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Haefele?
Aye.
Mrs. Mash?
Aye.
Mr. Matthews?
Aye.
Mrs. Mueller?
Aye.
Ms. Pappas?
Aye.
Mrs. Solis?
Aye.
Mr. Talley?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. Our next item is our Greeley Education Association Starfish Award. So I'd like to invite our GEA President, Ms. Andy Lee, to the podium to present this award.
Hello, President Matthews and Board of Education, Dr. Pelt and community. Once again, this is one of my favorite parts of the evening for me, and it's because I get to share the awesome thing that's happening in District 6 schools. And I know how hard it is for all of us to be able to get into our schools, so I'm glad to bring a little bit of the school to you. I'd like to introduce you to Erin Pruitt. She is one of our school psychs at Heath Middle School. And I just wanted to use this opportunity to let you know how much I've learned. I always thought that school psychs were these magical people that come out during a crisis and then they go away and never to do anything. I didn't really even know what school psychs did. However, I had a chance to shadow Erin, and she is busy. And she said such an awesome thing to me. She said, "It was a great day to be a psych. There are no crises." Now, having said that, this is her typical day. I've only shadowed her for 4 hours, so she spent time helping a student get into a better space so that he can learn. She spent time with her autism kids in an adaptive PE class, playing basketball with them because they needed somebody else to support them. She spent time garnering information so that our students can get the best educational opportunities possible. She explained to me that the Woodcock-Johnson isn't necessarily the most wonderful test because it's really verbally loaded. And that might be difficult for our English language learners. So she talked about something called the Wyatt. And it was just amazing watching her go from point to point to point. Then she had a mental health meeting. And here's a sad thing that I learned. Even though it was a great day to be a school psych, our threat assessments are greater this year. Our suicide assessments are greater this year. Our depression and our anxiety is greater this year because of COVID and because we can't have our kids in their normal situation, in their normal environment. And yet, every time one of those assessments happen, this young lady right here is right on the front lines, helping our students succeed. And so I really had a hard time trying to boil down what it is that Erin does. And I think this is it. It's very simple and very complex. Erin needs to make sure that all of our students are in a positive, socio-emotional place so that they can learn adequately. And as simple as that statement was, watching it happen was the most complicated, tiring day of my life. And so I just really wanted to appreciate, I want to appreciate you, Erin, but I also want to say thank you. Thank you for letting me have that momentary glimpse of what happens in a day in the life of all of our mental health professionals in our district, and how critical you really are to do the job of what we do best, which is educate the children. So thank you very much, and on behalf of the Greeley Education Association, here is a Starfish, because you definitely make a difference to one. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Thank you, Erin, for everything you do for our kids. Our next item is a proclamation for National School Counseling Week, and this is an action item.
Council of Student Representatives report.
Oh, sorry, I'm looking, thank you guys. It happens at least once a meeting, or I need fellow board members to tell me you're not in the right place on the agenda. Please welcome our Council of Student Representatives to give their report. Sorry guys, I did not mean to skip you.
Good evening, President Matthews, Board, Dr. Pilch. It has been my pleasure as Assistant Superintendent of Secondary to sit with the Council of Student Reps alongside Ms. Terry Pappas and just work with these students and talk about how their dreams and vision for the district and just kind of get inside their head a little bit. It's so nice. I finally got to meet them in person. We've been working through Zoom, right, which is not ideal, but they've been troopers about it and working with each other to try to do what's best for students and just the overall district. And so got a couple great ladies here. I'm going to ask that Mr. Carey Smith brag on them just a little bit before they speak, but and it'll be short, he says. So.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here. I appreciate your guys' willingness to hear from our students. And tonight I couldn't be more pleased and more proud to introduce to you these two young ladies. If our district is about achievement, and it is, then I couldn't find two more qualified students to represent achievement in our district than these two. These two have been involved in student body for all 4 years at school. They have probably taken, I believe, every AP class we offered, and we offer quite a few. Both of them are taking 4 AP classes their senior year. They've been part of the district student council for the last 2 years, I believe. And I know that I sometimes give Dr. Pilch's cabinet fits because I keep coming to my boss saying, hey, can we do this thing? Can we do this thing? Hey, can we do this? And in part, it's because of these two who keep bringing ideas to me saying, can we do this? So I take it to them, and I'm sure they discuss it on her cabinet. But anyway, and the thing maybe they're most proud of is both were semifinalists for the Betcher Scholarship. Both were. Wow. Gianna, on the right here, on your left, she was a semifinalist, but she withdrew her name from the Betcher because she was accepted to and is going to Stanford in the fall. Wow. And Lexi, she was a semifinalist for the Betcher. She's now a finalist for the Betcher. In addition to that, she's a finalist for the Koch Scholarship, and she's a finalist for the Daniels Fund Scholarship. So again, like I said, I couldn't find two better representations for our school. And I didn't have to go find them. I didn't have to go ask, hey, can you do this thing for me? I just looked them up. Hey, you guys have got this? Oh, yeah, we got it. We're on it. We got it. We're ready. And so we met. And so I'm pleased to introduce both Gianna and Lexi to you.
Wow. Thank you, Mr. Smith, for your kind words. Good evening. Thank you for hosting us tonight. We appreciate your time and commitment to leading excellence, and therefore, we appreciate your willingness to hear the student perspective. So we're going to start with celebrations. Although many challenges have arisen from COVID, we would like to acknowledge and recognize some of the positive ways that our school and district have faced these challenges. At Greeley Central, our administrators have heard the concerns of AP students and adjusted to the advanced placement classes to being taught over the full spring semester instead of one quarter. This has significantly relieved the stress of AP students and has helped ensure we properly retain the information and are adequately prepared for our exams. We would also like to celebrate how hard all District 6 faculty and staff have been working to return to in-person learning. Not only does this help students with their education, it has helped to relieve our mental health, physical, and emotion, and many other burdens that have resulted from virtual learning. As seniors, we appreciate the dialogue that is happening that might allow us to enjoy graduation, a senior picture, and other experiences, just some of them that come with senior year. We appreciate those advocating on our behalf.
And yet, despite efforts to optimize virtual and hybrid learning, certain challenges have risen to our attention. The side effects of distance learning at Greeley Central can best be described in one word: disconnection. Isolation from friends and demanding days requiring 8 or more hours of screen time that with homework can quickly become 10 to 14 hours per day, challenge our peers' mental health. Some students disappear from class altogether, occasionally leaving their registered addresses without a trace, bringing into question their commitment to return to education when classes are restored to normal. Being online has caused a change in learning structure and how the material is taught. For a specific example, labs in chemistry or other science classes are no longer able to be conducted on a regular schedule, something that is critical for those classes. This is just one example, but there are many where online learning has created gaps and people have missed out on important aspects of the course. For underclassmen, this will affect their future school years. Some central teachers work furiously to smooth synchronous learning and coordinate classwork, helping students as best as they can. Unfortunately, others have begun to rely on the conveniences of online classwork and tutorial videos, further exacerbating the disconnected relationship between teachers and their students, while further adding to our daily screen time, even on in-person days. Perhaps some of these are unavoidable byproducts of COVID. Nevertheless, these issues, in the very least, deserve acknowledgement. We bring these observations to you with faith that you will do what you can to help our student body. Thank you.
Other celebrations include the fact that teachers deserve special recognition. This is an extremely hard adjustment and something no one was exactly prepared for. Teachers have been flexible and very helpful in making sure we are getting what we need. Many of them have made it apparent that we can reach out for anything, which is very comforting to know. The hard work to return to in-person learning is especially important to our students with intellectual and developmental disabilities, who often find it more difficult to learn virtually than others. Some of these students are currently able to attend school 4 days a week. The accommodation for 2 extra days in person can be especially important for the development and well-being of these students, as well as others, and we are very happy to see them getting the services they need.
The mark COVID has left on everything, including our very ability to attend school, has undoubtedly been difficult for every stakeholder. However, it is the board's and schools' responses to these situations that make us proud to be students of District 6 and Greeley Central High School. Thank you.
Thank you both. And congratulations on all your awards. We're very proud of you as a board and as a district. Now we are to a proclamation for National School Counseling Week. And this is an action item that needs a motion.
I move that the Board of Education of Greeley Evans School District 6 proclaims February 1st through the 5th, 2021 as National School Counseling Week as presented.
Second.
Thank you both. Mr. Talley, would you be so kind as to read this proclamation for us?
Of course. Honorary Proclamation of the Board of Education of Weld County School District 6. Proclamation recognizing February 1st through the 5th, 2021 as National School Counseling Week. Whereas school counselors are employed in schools to help students reach their full potential. And whereas through their endless dedication, school counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents as these traits relate to career awareness and development. And whereas school counselors help parents focus on ways to further the educational, personal, and social growth of their children. And whereas school counselors work with teachers and other educators to help students explore their potential and set realistic goals for themselves. And whereas school counselors seek to identify and utilize community resources that can enhance and complement comprehensive school counseling programs and help students become productive members of society. And whereas comprehensive developmental school counseling programs are considered an integral part of the educational process that enables all students to achieve success in school. Whereas remote learning and quarantine requirements have drastically impacted the mental health of many people throughout the district, and the role of the school counselor has been more critical than ever in helping students, parents, and school staff deal with mental health issues that become exacerbated by the virus and its subsequent restrictions. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Board of Education of Greeley Evans School District 6 recognizes and celebrates February 1st through February 5th, 2021 as National School Counseling Week, given under my hand and the executive seal of Weld County School District 6 this 8th day of February 2021. Mr. Michael Matthews, President. Thank
you, Mr. Talley. You always do such an excellent job on those readings. People don't quite realize how difficult it is to read publicly. I have to do that all the time. It's one of the most difficult things I do. So thank you for always doing it so well. Any comment or discussion on our proclamation? Mr. Talley.
Surprise, I'm going to mention social emotional wellness. But school counselors, and I know I talked about this quite a bit, have a pretty tough and loaded role in our schools. You know, we're asking one individual to be responsible for the mental health, the academic career, to know them personally, to know their families, and to know their lives for over 200 students in some schools. And that's a lot to put on one individual and to expect the best out of them. And our school counselors show us day in and day out that they can do it, that they can be given a tough job and they can make the best out of it, and they can make sure that every single student on their caseload is treated and given the access and the ability to be successful. And I truly believe that I wish that this proclamation did something for them other than recognize them, because we should recognize school counselors and school social workers and school psychs every single day, especially now that when we're going through this COVID stuff and mental health is just on the rise. So I wish that there was something I can do or something I can say. I wish I can bring you all coffee every day for the rest of the year. I would totally do it. My bank account would not allow that. But I really do appreciate all school counselors, and I just thank you for choosing District 6, and thank you for being the best of the best. And I might be a little biased because I'm a school social worker, but mental health professionals, I truly do believe are some of the best in our country. And I hope that you continue to do the great things for our students, and their success is your success. So if you're watching at home or anywhere, please pat yourself on the back or give yourself a round of applause or something, because you are amazing. And I say that from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Mr. Talley. Ms. Elise.
It's hard to go after Ray on this issue. He did an amazing job speaking about that. But I also want to mention how us talking about this and really talking to kids about this at such a young age, how it impacts them as adults. We have a lot of adults that don't even consider their social emotional. They don't want to go to a counselor for some, different backgrounds as far as ethnicity. That's not something they're used to as far as speaking about their emotions and stuff. So I'm really glad that we're starting to really emphasize how important this work is, and that it's totally normal, and that we all go through it, we all do it. And so just want to, I think this is really important because it kind of emphasizes that it's okay to need and ask for help. And we all need to make sure that we're doing that, especially during this time. So thanks for doing this proclamation. And I thank all the counselors for all the work that you do. You really keep us running. And sometimes we forget about that part of it, but we're working harder to make sure that we have those conversations. And I appreciate that Ray brings it up, because we need to keep talking and talking and talking about it. So thank you.
Any other comments or questions from board members? Dr. Pilch, is there anything that you would like to add on this? I'd normally give you the first word, but
No.
I'll give you the last word this time.
Yes, thank you. I don't need the first word. And I'm glad that Erin is still here with us. I mean, we have always, and I've been an educator for 33 years, and we've always put a tremendous burden on the support services in our schools. So whether that's school counselors, school social workers, school psychs, we have always looked to those folks to come alongside us as school administrators and as classroom teachers to do some of the most complex work with our students. Throughout my career as a teacher, I can remember working with a school counselor on some very difficult issues with students, and then as an assistant principal working with the school psych on serious mental health issues with students, and working with social workers to ensure that students got the right services and that families had the right intervention. And so we just can't say enough, and I think we all feel it more right now. I know when I brought this proclamation to President Matthews and Vice President Pappas and said, it's National School Counselor Month, can we do this proclamation? And they both said, oh, more now than ever. more now than ever. So thank you for your support of the support services in our district. And thank you for caring about the social emotional wellness so deeply, as you all do. And thank you, Erin, and to you and your colleagues. Appreciate you very much.
Ms. Crane, will you give us a roll call vote on this, please?
Mr. Haefele?
Aye.
Mrs. Mash?
Aye.
Mr. Matthews?
Aye.
Mrs. Mueller?
Aye.
Ms. Pappas?
Aye.
Mrs. Solis?
Aye.
Mr. Talley?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. Our next item is a repeal, first read of policy BCC, violations of policy by a board member. And for those who watch our meetings regularly, they know that the way that this works is we have a first read and basically just a chance for this to come before the eyes of this board, and then we don't vote on this until our next board meeting on a second read, or a subsequent board meeting anyway. And so there's nothing really for us to do with this tonight, but we'll be voting on this and a second read at a subsequent board meeting. Our next item are the revisions to policy AEA, standards-based education, and this is an action item that will require a motion.
I move that the Board of Education of Greeley Evans School District 6 approves revisions to policy AEA, standards-based education as presented.
Second.
Thank you both. I don't know that there's much to say on this one, just adding some clarification about who our stakeholders are. But is there any discussion or questions from board members? Seeing none, Ms. Crane, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Haefele?
Aye.
Mrs. Mash?
Aye.
Mr. Matthews?
Aye.
Mrs. Mueller?
Aye.
Ms. Pappas?
Aye.
Mrs. Solis?
Aye.
Mr. Talley?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. Our next item is a COVID update. And so, Dr. Pilch, I will hand this portion to you.
Thank you, President Matthews, and thank you, Ms. Myers, Chief of Communications, for coming during the slides for me. It's been a while since you've had a formal COVID update, so I wanted to share some new information with you and up-to-date information, and then I'll also be happy to take questions as we get to the end of it or even throughout it. So I'll just start with kind of sharing where we are with quarantines. We currently have 29 of our 47 sites with no quarantines. So most of our sites do not have quarantines. 4 of those sites only have 1 cohort that is quarantined. And I'm pleased to say that none of our schools are fully remote at this time and have not been since we reopened in mid-January. And that we have 31 cohorts from 18 different campuses that are quarantined, which is 710 individuals. And you might remember, just by comparison, that when we made the move to go fully remote in mid-November, we had over 3,000 individuals quarantined at that time. And we are utilizing the targeted quarantine, and what that means is that we are able to assess who was within 6 feet of the individual who is positive or presumed positive for COVID for more than 15 minutes. And as a result of that, we have been able to keep far more numbers of our teachers in the classroom than what we did first semester, and we've been able to keep more students in the classroom. So we will continue with the targeted quarantine. It's tricky because some days students don't stay in their assigned seats because of the activity that's going on in the classroom. And on those days, there will be much more interaction. Same with staff. And then I want to talk about a little bit about positive cases, and I'll share the data with you. This is as of last Friday, that we had 0.43%, or 95 of our 22,000-ish students who have been found to have a positive or probable case. So still a very low number of actual positive or probable cases. With staff, it's a 0.93%, or 28 of our 3,000 staff. And so this has been since we came back at semester. When we look at the numbers of the entire school year, we've had 811 positive or probable cases, and then 123 active positive cases right now is what we have in the system. So those 123 cases are throughout the system. I want to share the county data with you and our local data. On this chart, I'll draw your attention down to the bottom of the graph or chart at February 5th, 2021. This is as of last Friday, and you can see that the Weld positivity rate is 5.6%. Greely Evans is 4.96. It's the first time we've been below 5% since October 23rd-ish, I think. And then you see that the 2-week cumulative is getting to come down. The state positivity rate, 7-day positivity rate is 4.41. So we're still just slightly above that here in Greeley and Evans, but we're certainly moving in the right direction. We work with the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment to determine when we might have an outbreak. We do have an official outbreak with the Greeley Central High School wrestling team. That is confirmed, and so that does go onto the state website and becomes part of public information around outbreaks in the state. Yes, cases are still occurring in our schools, but the protocols in the schools are working. And as you mentioned earlier, President Matthews, about the importance of staying home if you're sick or if you're waiting on a test, even if nobody is sick in the home, but you've had a known exposure and you're waiting on a COVID test, you really should stay out. You must stay out until you have those results. And if you have a known exposure, you should stay out until you can be tested and it can be determined that you do not have COVID. So we're still seeing a lot of cases where staff and students are coming back into school after a known exposure, or even after not having felt that well, and then they begin to feel well and they're still waiting on a COVID test. So that could help us a lot, I think, in terms of making sure we can stay open throughout the semester, is just to really stay home that additional day or two, because that could prevent having a whole group of students or staff have to stay home, 10 days or even longer. I just want to remind you in this next slide the criteria for an outbreak. I'm not going to read all that to you, but I just wanted to give you that information again. This is the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment criteria for an outbreak. Right now, we're in pretty good shape. We are not, I think the last time I gave you a COVID update last semester, we were watching several schools for possible outbreak, but right now, we're just watching a couple of our school sites for the potential of an outbreak, and then as I indicated, the Greeley Central wrestling team is an outbreak. So I want to shift now and talk a little bit about testing. We do have the Binax testing here in the district. We started this first with testing that was supplied to us from the Weld County Department of Public Health and Environment. So they helped train our staff and provided us with that testing, and we started at 5 schools, and now we have that testing available in 9 of our schools, where staff can actually administer the Binax now to the student or a staff member who is symptomatic. Staff can self-administer, as well as the older children can as well. But the Binax now gives us an immediate result. So if that is a positive result, then we know right then we need to go and begin to work on the quarantine of the other folks who might have been exposed. If we get a negative, we ask that individual to come over here to the district office and to receive a PCR test. That'll take 2 or 3 days to get the result on that. But some of the Binax now can be negative. It's a very, very accurate for a rapid test. It's one of the best, but there are still some false negatives, and so we ask folks to get a PCR if they receive a negative. We are also administering the Binax now here in the district office. I will tell you, we aren't having a lot of positive results at our schools or here at the district office as we test individuals. We have also begun at-home testing availability for staff. That's the Binax now as well. It's a system through the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. We're at one of 3 states in the nation that are piloting these Binax now home test kits. This first month of test kits, and it's 6 kits, so it's a month's worth of tests, This first month is free or paid for by the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. After this first month, we'll see if they're able to continue to pay for it, or they were planning to work with FEMA possibly on funding. If not, it would be at the district expense to pick that up, and I just don't know that that's something that we're going to be able to do, but it's certainly something we'll explore. But we do have staff who started getting those test kits in their homes this weekend if they chose to go online and order those test kits. So that's available to staff. And then I just want to share that we continue our ongoing partnerships and planning. I continue to work closely with superintendents here in Weld County as well as in Larimer County on our plans. And now the big plan, of course, is around vaccines, right? And we're working with Larimer and Weld County Health Departments both. And then our local providers, Banner Health in particular, alongside with UC Health and then the Sunrise Health Clinic. So those have been the three big providers that continue to work with us. They've advised us throughout this pandemic, and now they're coming alongside us to begin to provide vaccines to our staff. So let's talk a little bit about what's happening with vaccines. So you do know that we began vaccinating the folks who are considered 1A. So our nurses and our health clerks and those folks who are delivering frontline medical supports to students, those staff actually are receiving their second vaccine this week. So the Weld County Health Department vaccinated most of those folks. And Sunrise then came alongside also and did some of those vaccines and then began to vaccinate some of our special education teachers, our teachers who work in the intensive programs for special education. And then just this week, we launched with UC Health and Banner some additional vaccinations for staff. So UC Health is a randomization, and I'll talk in just a minute about that a little bit more. And then Banner Health, we're able to use our prioritized list and have begun to vaccinate staff at Banner Health as well. We did do a clinic 2 weeks ago Saturday with Banner Health where we vaccinated about 100 teachers as well. Those were special educators. And so those folks will be coming up this Saturday for their second vaccine. So we have a prioritization list for staff, and we've really prioritized based on those staff who are frontline, spending the most time with students, and in riskier situations perhaps where students aren't able to wear masks or where staff are administering the Binax test possibly to students. And then we start to come down the prioritization. So of course, right now physical education teachers are on standby this week at a Banner clinic to be called should there be vaccine available at the end of the school day each day this week. And then music teachers have been called to be on standby and to receive some vaccines Saturday through a clinic that Sunrise is offering. Our bus drivers and bus monitors will also receive, those who want to will receive vaccines on Saturday through Sunrise. And then, so we can prioritize in terms of our work with Banner and Sunrise. They give us, we have 85 slots or we have 100 slots, and we just work our way down that list. But with UC Health, all of our staff have been invited to sign up for the UC Health app, as you mentioned earlier, President Matthews, and then they're put into a randomization system with all of the educators in Northern Colorado. And then at some point, we'll likely be selected for a vaccine, which we're hearing today that folks were already contacted over the weekend, some folks, to receive their vaccine, and those clinics began today with UC Health. Could you go back just for a second, please, Teresa? Thank you. We have at least 400 plus staff who've been scheduled or received the first vaccine, and I say at least 400 plus. We don't know the number yet on UC Health exactly. They will be offering more spots tomorrow, very likely, as spots become available. And then again, lots of folks receiving their second vaccine this week, or lots that received it the first time around. So 21% of our staff have been offered a vaccine as of midday today. 12% of our staff, so not of that 21, 12% of our staff who we have contacted have declined, and then another 14% just simply have not responded. And we're not just sending an email, we're sending principals down and supervisors down to talk to the individuals and to get a response. So, that number matches about what our survey said when we surveyed staff around the vaccine. About 25% said they probably wouldn't get the vaccine at this time. And that number of declines and no response indicates that we're probably right in there. So what's up next? Big work around planning for learning loss. I'm not only have you heard a lot tonight about the worries about the social emotional learning that the students talked about, and it sounds like they talked about some of the learning loss pieces too, as they talked about their different experiences. But we've got some big work that we've just begun in the last week or so around really getting ready for summer, and what can daily instruction in the summer look like. And I've been calling it a fifth quarter, although we don't have the ability to just say everybody's coming back a fifth quarter and teachers, you come back and we're going to do a whole nother quarter of school. But we're looking at offering some pretty robust programming in June and July for our students pre-K through 12 who would qualify for that programming. So much more than what we've offered in the past in terms of summer programming to begin to make up for that learning loss. We'll use a combination of dollars to do that. We'll use the newly received ESSER $2, those reliefs, the education, elementary and secondary school relief funds that we've just been allocated, and then we'll use a combination of mill levy override dollars that were already dedicated to summer school, Title I grant dollars, 21st Century grant, so some of our other state and federal grant dollars, and really combine our resources to provide a robust program for our students. And then, of course, continuing the social emotional learning initiatives that have started this year. It's going to be a big part of supporting our students as we go into the summer and through the summer and then coming back next fall. And then just continuing to coordinate the vaccines. And I want to say, I know this, the vaccine pieces can be frustrating for some of our staff. I mean, it is a little clunky, guys. It's, there are not enough vaccines for 3,000 educators in District 6 and 20,000 plus educators in Northern Colorado. We just don't have that kind of vaccine supply. So, when they have 100 additional vaccines for us, they call us and they might give us really 24 to 48 hours to contact those people and get them lots of information on those people that they need to have in their system to be able to vaccinate them. And so it's nothing like when we do flu shots and you can just sign up for a flu shot and the flu shot's there when you come in the morning at your site and you can get a stick in your arm. And I mean, it isn't like that at all. They can't waste even, one vaccine, and they want to use every bit of the vaccine that is in the vial. And so it's pretty complex on the health provider end, and certainly complex on our end, coordinating this and getting folks into the queue. So, I just ask for teachers and our other staff to be patient, give us grace and understanding as we're trying to work our way through this. I do believe there will be vaccine for everyone to be vaccinated. I don't think it will be 2 to 3 weeks. We are being told that by health officials that the governor's expectation and hope that we could vaccinate all the educators in Colorado in 2 to 3 weeks is just not realistic. There is not that kind of vaccine supply in the state of Colorado, at least not at this time. And so it's probably more like 4 to 6 weeks, 8 weeks to get everyone vaccinated. But, I'll tell you, it's already moving a little more quickly than I thought it would as we begin to ratchet down group by group and get more and more folks vaccinated, at least get this first vaccine. So we'll continue that work. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Myers. I'm happy to take questions that you all have.
I think Ms. Mueller has a question first.
I have a couple questions. So one is, if we are able to vaccinate teachers at a pretty rapid pace, that's my hope and dream, is there any, I take to heart what Mr. Torres brought forward at the last board meeting. Is there any discussion about potentially changing the high school hybrid model if we're able to vaccinate the teachers in the buildings?
Yeah, we had that conversation, Ms. Mueller. No, it won't be possible to bring high school kids back on a daily basis. A couple reasons. One, it's a significant shift in that master schedule. We can't just roll this quarter. I mean, basically, we're on a quarter system right now. We can't just naturally roll that into a 7-period day every single day. The other issue, we will not have everybody vaccinated before the end of the school year. I mean, I know the governor promised that, but I don't think that's realistic. We're hoping to have everyone vaccinated by summer so that we can actually offer this summer program and have people come back confident with their health and coming back. So I don't, as much as I hate to say it and hate to realize that, I don't see the high school schedule changing. We're already at mid-February.
I have one other question, which is involving the social emotional learning and the fact that a lot of people are talking about how our world is never really going to return to the same way again. Students have now existed a year trying to do hybrid schooling, doing online schooling. Is there any discussion about how we need to actually re-onboard students come fall because their motivation may be low, they may not want, or we make an assumption students want to return to school, but there may be some who don't.
Yeah.
And, kind of maybe coming up with a plan for that reintegration of students into the buildings?
Absolutely, Ms. Mueller. There's no question. There's a couple of ways of where we've got to come out really strong and really deliberate. And the first wave of this is with this programming in June and July. And we've got to be very strong and deliberate. And then our next wave of that is, okay, what do we do for August? And what do we need to have in place for August? Because if we don't do that, we are going to see significant loss in terms of our students, and loss in terms of what they're able to do academically and interested in doing academically. And so we have some really big work to do over the next 6 months to make sure. And I don't expect it to ever look exactly like it did before for students. I think you're absolutely right. There'll be students who still want to be synchronous. There'll be students who still want to be fully online and their families want them online, but we've got to come out stronger than we ever have before.
Ms. Mash had a question.
I was just wondering if the district had shared any information on the safety and efficacy of the vaccine, since we have 20-some% who are not interested.
We have pushed out some information, and we're waiting for some additional information from both health departments with information they'd like for us to push out. I know just today we are pushing out some pictures of staff being vaccinated and at the Banner Health facility, and in an effort to promote, that vaccine's safe when we're getting the vaccine. Ms. Myers, what else would you add?
I wouldn't add anything, Dr. Filch.
Thanks.
Waiting for that information from them.
Yeah.
Mr. Talley.
I have a few questions. When and if teachers are notified that they can come get their vaccine, I'm guessing it's probably not, you can come on next Tuesday. It's probably pretty immediate, is my assumption. Are classes covered if it's at 2 p.m. or noon or whatever?
Great question. So we haven't had where we've notified people and said, go now. But over on Friday, we said, you'll have to go between 10 and 12 on Monday and Tuesday. And so what we've said to folks and what we've said to our administrators is, let's work to get teachers covered so people don't have to take sub days, take the day and get a sub. And so our hope is that in most cases we can cover for people who have to run out and get a vaccine and they can come back. That's our hope. And for the folks that we notified and said, okay, you're on a wait list this week, be available every day from 3 to 7 should you get that call. And their principals know who they are, so if they get that call and they've got to be there at 3 o'clock and school doesn't get out till 3:15, that they can ask the principal for that help to get their class covered.
Okay. And are there any discussion around if a staff member, some people show symptoms after getting it, are they just required to take their own personal leave?
Right now they are, Mr. Talley, and Miss Lee and I just had this conversation before the board meeting. Right now they are, and we just really need to monitor where we are with the reactions to it, and then make some decisions about, if people are out of sick leave, we're certainly going to work with them. But when, some places teachers have said, we all need a day of recovery that day after the vaccine. And that's 3,000 days in our system. And that will cause us to close schools down if everybody plans ahead of time to take the day off the day after their vaccine. We're finding that some folks have no side effects at all, and then we're hearing that some, are kind of achy and have a headache and are sore. And then after the second vaccine, we're hearing there are some more severe side effects. So we'll just have to monitor that as we go through this.
Okay.
Interestingly, most of these folks right now, they're going to be getting their second vaccine over spring break.
Perfect timing. So we had a lot of talk, I feel like, in these last 2 months around mental health and the mental health of our students and taking care of our students and our staff and all of that. Did we prioritize our mental health professionals in the school so they can get the vaccine ready?
Yeah, they have all been offered, I believe. I don't know if school counselors have yet, but all social workers, PTs, OTs, they qualified under the health professionals, so they were offered in the first round. I believe counselors, well, I'll just look. School psychologists were in the very first round with all the healthcare providers. Counselors are higher up than classroom teachers, I do know that, on the priority, because we looked at, who is seeing larger groups of students. While I'm looking that up, what's your next question?
My next question is, and it's my last one, I promise, is around the summer schooling. You said if they meet the qualifications, what are those, and can a parent opt in to having their kid attend a summer school program?
Yeah, so we haven't finalized that yet, but there's some things that I imagine and expect, and that is that we will use data, and if the data is indicating that a student is, they're on our local data, the data is indicating the student is below grade level, that we would bring that student in. All of our summer programs, parents have always had an opportunity to say, I'd really like my child in that program also, and so we would work with families on that. And at the end of the day, it's expense. Ideally, I'd like to run what I call that fifth quarter and bring everybody back, but our chief financial officer told me this morning we did not have the money to do that, so to come up with something else. So we will.
Are there any other questions, comments from board members?
Yes, school counselors are up, actually coming up in the next group after we get, right now we're doing elementary PE and elementary music first, because they're higher risk activities, the PE and music, and then lunch monitors, and then counselors come up in the next group. So they're in there with campus monitors and front office staff and those folks.
Who makes this list? Is this from the state?
No, we made the list.
Okay.
So we worked on it with our emergency team and our cabinet team, and then I got some feedback from Miss Lee on it, and I took it to our Teachers Advisory Council and got feedback from them on it. So we had a lot of input in it, but it's our list.
Okay.
Chances are with the UC Health randomization that a lot of these folks will come up well before they're prioritized to come up.
Thank you.
Dr. Pelch, I don't see any other questions or comments from board members, so I will just say thank you for all the work. We know it's a lot to try to manage, and to try to manage vaccines now on top of everything else. So we appreciate it. Our students appreciate it. Our staff, I know, appreciates it. So our next item of business is an update for Innovation 2030, and Dr. Pelch, I will give this to you also.
Thank you, President Matthews. And I don't intend to spend much time on this, but I will spend as much time as you all like answering questions or taking your input. But I just wanted to put this in front of you again because we did that work with you all here in a work session a few weeks ago with the instructional leadership team. And I just want you to know that the work is continuing to forge ahead. So we have, just as a reminder, we've adopted the mission and vision, the values and beliefs, the focus areas, and the goals. So the work you all have been doing and you did with our instructional leadership team has been around objectives and then starting to develop some of those strategies and actions. So just a reminder of the mission and vision there of the district. We tweaked it just a little, remember, putting that college and career language in there specifically, and the language around in partnership with families and community to succeed in tomorrow's world. Values, you all adopted those here last spring, and so you can see those, and we continue to put those in front of groups as they give us feedback on this. And then the 4 big focus areas remained the same, with some minor revision in them. So what you're going to see next is really just the goals that you all have adopted, and just a reminder of those goals. We've been sharing those out, and when we come together on the 24th with the larger group, we will share all of this with that larger group. And I just want to remind you, we got down to 2 goals under each of the focus areas. And so you see 2 goals for strengthening partnerships, and then climate and culture, and then operational and organizational effectiveness. And then to come back again and remind you that we're at that phase still where we're getting input on the objectives. So when we come together on the 25th with the community group, you all will be assigned to groups that day like you were with the instructional leadership team. Our steering committee for Innovation 2030 will lead those small groups in a consensus and circle on the Zoom, and they will be looking at the objectives and giving us feedback on the objectives. So as you look at the slide around next steps, you kind of see that timeline of what we've been doing. So after we come together on the 24th and we get feedback on the objectives and the strategies and actions that you all have identified already, we'll take it back to the steering committee to clean up again, synthesize, update, and then we plan to bring it back to you all on March 22nd in a work session for your feedback and response. So that's probably that's the big climax of this, is that the work that we're going to do in this community meeting, and then the work the steering committee will do, we'll come back to you all again, and with the hope of really beginning to wrap this up by the end of the spring with a big launch in August. I'm going to turn to Ms. Crane, who has been our really our director of strategic planning, in addition to being yours and my executive assistant, see what else she would like to add.
I would just add that our steering committee is really excited to be getting this work into our project management software. So as it solidifies, it will become more and more like an actual plan that has dates attached and things like that. And so once we have those actions, we'll take the next step and identify measures, so we'll know how we are actually accomplishing this work and when we are accomplishing this work. And we'll start attaching dates and assign people to it, and then the work really begins to roll. So taking this time up front to establish our priorities and to establish the plan very carefully will play out in the long run. We say in a lot of the work, including the work you mentioned earlier with Diane Groves, we go slow to go fast. So I know right now sometimes it feels a little bit slow, but we're getting ready to hit the ground running.
I'm so glad, Ms. Crane, you mentioned measures, because that will be a big part of you all's work on March 22nd, is to make sure that we're measuring the things you want us to measure, and that we're moving the data that you expect to see move as a result of that mission, vision, and values and those goals that you establish. So it's exciting. I mean, it's amazing that this work continues, and you know, I'm ever grateful for the really, really dedicated and smart people who we have here in District 6 who are doing this work alongside of me and really alongside of you all. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pilch. Are there any questions, comments from board members?
Might be my shortest board report ever.
Well, it's not new work or new information
Right.
for any of us, so something we're certainly engaged in and excited about as well. And thank you for continuing that work, even in the midst, again, of everything else. It's nice to know that the big work and the long-range planning still goes on. So thank you very much, Dr. Pilch. Our next item is, our final item, is public participation regarding non-agenda items. And tonight, Ms. Andy Lee has come to speak to us, celebrating March 2nd as Read Across America Day and inviting board members to participate in reading for a half an hour on March 2nd, either in person or on Zoom. And just something that I say always, Ms. Lee, is just to remind all of our speakers that they have 2 minutes to speak, and that this board is committed to providing a safe environment where all members of the school community are treated with dignity and respect, and we expect all speakers to exercise their speech rights responsibly. And so with that, I'll give you 2 minutes, Ms. Lee.
I will speak as quickly as possible. Good evening. As you know, my name is Andy Lee, and I am the president of the Greely Education Association. I want to thank you for all that you do to help the children of District 6. We ask much of ourselves and of you, and we know there are times when we wish we could do more. Tonight, I'd like each of you to do something personal. I'd like you to do it with me. I would like for us to commit to take a half an hour on March 2nd, 2021 to read with a child. On March 2nd, the National Education Association, Colorado Education Association, and the Greely Education Association are sponsoring a celebration of reading we call NEA's Read Across America. Our goal is to have every child in every school reading with a caring adult for at least 30 minutes that day. Research has proved that children who read and are read to daily do better in school. Part of developing a lifelong love of reading is also giving children books with characters who represent them and who have different experiences from them. In our diverse and complex society, students need books that provide both windows and mirrors if we are going to create more readers, writers, and people who feel included and recognized, and who understand that the world is far richer than just their experiences alone. We have some notable company in this effort. Our partners such as the International Reading Association, the National PTA, First Book, PBS, and We Need Diverse Books, among others, have all recognized the benefit of giving children access to diverse books. We would like you to join us by endorsing this program. We would like for all of you to personally commit to reading on March 2nd, whether we can be in person or via Zoom. President Matthews, I ask that you and the other board members explore the possibility of joining us in our goal of having every child read in every school in our community. Having every child in every school in our community reading with a caring adult, either in person or via Zoom, to celebrate the joy of reading on March 2nd. I'm also going to ask a personal ask, if I may. I would like us to join together to do a joint proclamation as the Board of Education of District 6 and as the Board of Directors of Greely Education Association to celebrate Read Across America. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. And just for board protocol for everyone who doesn't know, we never, even though we normally respond to you in this portion of the meeting, we don't respond to readers or to speakers. And that is all that we have tonight. If you've been joining us online, we are glad that you did and hope you have a great evening. This meeting is adjourned.